What is up, Retro Maniacs? Welcome to the Retro Card Chat podcast. I am Mike from Mike's Retro Trading Cards, and I'm joined today, as always, by the Marvel Master Joe Day and EP Mr. Eric Pahalik. How are you today, boys?
Let's get it started, boys.
Ooh.
A little bit of a letdown on that one. Not too bad, though.
Not too bad, though, yeah. How's it going,
It is one thing to question the official story, and another thing entirely to make wild accusations or insinuate that this is a podcast.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know what that means. But anyway, we're here today to talk about a subject I think we all kind of like, non-sport cards. WWE just recently had a release from Prizm, and I don't know how many people are on card Twitter, but it overwhelmed card Twitter. It was everywhere. People showing their pulls, showing their boxes they were going to break, and people complaining about it, people loving it, just everywhere. And
or showing their boxes they're not going to break.
Or like
as
me,
someone on this
their
pod.
boxes. Yeah, I have too bad of luck to open the two boxes I have, so they will stay sealed for the moment. But yeah, what a great time for non-sport cards. We had Marvel cards over the last year that got really hot. You have WWE really hot, the Star Wars stuff, Pokemon. It's a great time to be a non-sport collector. So I figured we could have a little chat today about that. And what do you love about non-sports cards, Joe?
Well, so if you look at my personal collection, I pretty much only focus on football players that have been a part of my fantasy football life. Tom Brady rookie cards, and then non-sports comic book cards. If you said, I'm going to drop you on a desert island, you can only collect one of those things. As much as I love the Brady cards, my Warren Moon cards, it's the non-sports cards. They are so much fun. You don't have to worry about a player retiring or tearing his ACL. You've got these cards that have been really a generational type thing. People think of that with football and baseball and things like that. Comic books, and I'm going to talk specifically for the most part about comic books, but comic book cards and comic books have been around since the 1920s, 1930s. We've had these comic books in our lives, and to see the different sets come out every year with a different artist representation, and then you can see the movies behind me, getting ready for the pod, actually watching Infinity War. So just the way they have now taken over popular culture. And you can go back and start looking at some of these older cards and ripping those boxes cheaper than you can rip current sports card boxes today for the most part. I think it's been a really fun ride here the last couple of years.
EP?
My thoughts echo Joe's quite a bit. I really like the fact that a Charizard card or a James Bond card or a Marvel card or any Marvel character card, it's not going to go. There's not going to be something that's going to happen where they're going to get hurt or they're going to retire early, like Andrew Luck did for football. If anything else, Spider-Man's cards are going to go up, and James Bond cards are going to go up, and I think that's really up in value. And I think that's as much as we are collectors, we also like to see our collections increase in value and increase in popularity.
Yeah, and they say collect what you like, and more people I think really are. I'm not afraid to say that I love collecting WWE cards. I don't really watch it like I used to, but what great memories. I've been watching wrestling since the early 1980s. So, I hit the pre-Hulk Hogan era. I hit the whole Hulk Hogan era, and I hit the Attitude Era with Stone Cold, The Rock. It's just it's just fun, and a lot of collecting is nostalgia, and I think WWE cards, a lot of that is right now from the nostalgia. You don't have rookie cards pushing that product. It's The Rock, it's Stone Cold, Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, and it's just really cool. I think it's cool that people like what they like. You know, the Marvel movies are huge. Like, how do you not like looking at Marvel cards? Like, yeah, a comic book, the art in the comic book is incredible, and you transfer it to a card, and it's still incredible on a card. So, yeah, I find a lot of enjoyment in that. Uh, so, Joe, what's your favorite non-sport?
So for me, it's if I could only collect one thing, it'd probably be the 90MU stuff. Um, that was one of the first things I collected as a kid. So you talked about nostalgia. You know, when those came out in 1990, I was 9, 10 years old, and I actually got them at the Rival card shop in Danville.
Ooh.
I know. Rest in peace, sports page, right? But
I bought them out.
you did buy them out, so it's like
I won.
You're Panini, and
yeah.
they were playoff and Pacific.
I'm Fanatics, and they're Panini.
Fanatics.
Yeah,
perfect. But so I started buying the 90MU there, and then when I started going to your card shop, Mike, I started buying, I think, the 91, 92, and so on. But my favorite card it's got to be the Stanley Mr Marvel. This is such a cool card. It's got he was a writer for so many of these, a creator for so many of these different characters. He's got, Captain America in there. He's got Spider-Man. It's such an iconic card from that set. And, I have 3 of them sitting at PSA right now, which I'll probably get, 2024, 2025, somewhere around there. But
maybe if you're lucky,
maybe if I'm lucky. But as an aside, how cool does this look in this tux? I mean, it's just such a cool card. And the thing I really like about these cards is the simplicity. It's not flashy. It's just really cool artwork, very comic book-y artwork. It's not something that someone drew specifically for this product, or it doesn't feel that way anyway. It feels like you just pulled these cards out of the comic book panels. That's why I love the 90MU. And then one other one, I don't know if it's going to pick up very well here, but this is the it probably won't. It's definitely not going to. But it's the 3D Spider-Man versus, maybe we can put a picture or something up, Mike. But it's a 3D Spider-Man versus Venom hologram card that came from the Series 4 of the Marvel Universe. So again, when I grew up, I was a DC guy as a comic book reader, but for some reason I gravitated towards the comic book cards from Marvel. There was just something about them. They looked better. They felt better. And the value of these have gone tremendously. They're never going to be as high as they were at one point during the pandemic, but they still have quite a bit of value. Boxes are still going for $800 to $1,000.
Wow. EP?
Well, as I've told you guys a couple times in text form, my collecting, I have a lot of likes in my collecting. I'll open up a box and find everything from baseball to football to basketball, and then a hockey card and maybe some Pokemon cards. So like a variety of things is I really like to collect those. And Allen and Ginter, which is a baseball product, a Topps baseball product, they also include like boxers and whales and the largest buildings in the world. So that kind of set really says a lot to me. Here's this is a complete set of the, let me see here, Man's Best Friend. They're all dog cards. They're minis. And that's really that kind of set is something I really, really enjoy. But also, I also
they have a bulldog.
I'm sure they do. I'll have to go through them and show you.
I might need to get one. Yeah.
Do they have a Beagle by chance, Bailey? No. My little Beagle ear. Okay.
I'm probably not.
No designer dogs.
And then also movie cards are another thing. And they're like movie stars and models and swimming stars and stuff in that Allen and Ginter year to year. But like I have this Star Wars CCG, a collectible card game card, and I have a Marvel Series 3 card of Carnage. And then I also have this one of the autographs from 3 boxes of a James Bond product that I got. So all of those, this is Martine Beswick, she was in 2 different James Bond films. But I just have just a variety of things I like to collect. And non-sports is, like I said, just it almost seems as much as I like the baseball cards and football cards, like it's just a lot of fun to have these kinds of cards. And that's it.
Well, I gave it away a little bit, but I'm a big wrestling card fan and not afraid to say that. I don't have any cards here at the moment of my current PC because I have sent most of them off to be graded at different companies, but I actually collect a lot of Paul Heyman cards from WWE. But of course, he ran ECW. I loved ECW back in the day, and I think he's a fantastic talent on air. So, just a fun guy to PC. Doesn't cost me a ton of money, although a couple cards I spent maybe a little more than I should have on. But my favorite wrestling set of all time, not one that gets a lot of notoriety, but this action pack set from 1994. I love this Undertaker card. This one I actually found just in a box, so to get an 8 on it was pretty great. But I have another box of those coming. I'm gonna be doing a rip for the channel on that, but I just love them. I mean, we loved action pack football back in the day, and combining the nostalgia of the action pack with the nostalgia of WWF back then is just a lot of fun. Of course, I have my Hulk Hogan rookie card. I bought some packs, opened them up on the channel, and was lucky enough to pull that. Only a 7, but I pulled it. Was sitting in a pack of cards for what, 40 years almost, and I'm the guy that let it out and then just ironically slabbed it right back up. So, but and one other card that I have, this is a 1993 Topps Bill Clinton holo card. They're kind of rare. Back in 1993, there was a comic book series called Jack Kirby's Secret Saga. It was 4-part. I honestly never read the comics, but I think they had a storyline with the president and vice president, and the comics came bagged, and they had promo cards in the first 4 issues. I think issue 4 had Bill Clinton like playing saxophone, but it was like an illustrated card of him. But this holographic card that I have here was a premium sent to comic book owners at the time. So the only way to get those was if you had a comic book account and sold comics. So, back in 93, was a big era. I had comics at my shop, and I had that card, never really thought much about it, but they're really pretty rare. Like, you don't see them. I search eBay for them all the time, and I usually buy them whenever they come up, but they just don't show up that often. So kind of a cool.
Did you only get one of them, Mike?
Or? I got one. Yeah, they had Bill Clinton. They also had Al Gore. So you got one or the other. So it really adds to the rarity of it. Like you just don't see them, and I kind of like the fact that I have that card, and most people don't even know what it is. So that's a cool part of collecting, when you have something rare and something different than everybody else. So, we've seen like a huge burst of, like, with the WWE cards, like an increase in the value and stuff like that. It's, increase in popularity. Like, it's just really cool. I think with the Marvel cards, Upper Deck puts out some really cool stuff even now, not just the older stuff, but like, talk a little bit about the value increase, Joe.
Well, I think it ultimately comes back to what we had talked about a little bit, is the nostalgia part of it. But ultimately, the reason Marvel cards specifically have gained in value, and I'm sure folks know this, it's the movies. I mean, the movies are so, and I think maybe we'll talk about wrestling a little bit, how popular wrestling has become, but it's kind of that mix of nostalgia and things currently happening. Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar that was a huge WrestleMania. I mean, that I'm sure pushed it. Same thing with the recent Spider-Man movie. My favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe character, Doctor Strange, that movie's coming out in a few weeks. To me, when I was growing up, DC was always my favorite, but those are you can get a box of DC cards for $35 because there's nothing really attached to them. Especially the early stuff, they weren't allowed to make Batman cards, but that's a whole different thing. But there's nothing attached to them like Marvel has the movies attached to them. So when people are buying cards now from Upper Deck, they're buying those cards because, oh, they're characters we saw in a movie. They're characters maybe I took my son or daughter to see that movie, and or 20 years, how long's it been? 15 years ago when Iron Man came out, maybe you went there as a kid and that's why you collect those cards now. So a lot of it has to do with the popular culture of what we're seeing today, tied with the nostalgia of people who saw movies like that or read comic books now have money that they can go out and buy this stuff.
For sure. Yeah. EP, do you think it's something going to continue to grow?
Definitely the Marvel cards, 1,000%. Like I didn't know anything really about comics other than through a video game and then through the MCU, through the movies and now the TV shows. And I overpaid for the box of cards to get this one, like no doubt about it. During the big boom, like I wanted to have some Marvel cards. I had none. That was again, I like to collect a variety of things, and so to get that card, I overpaid. I bought 2 boxes, and I still I love them. The cards are still awesome. I read all the backs of them just because I don't know all these characters as well as a lot of people that have read the comics do, and so that's a huge thing. And I think when Spider-Man came out and they nailed that, and they've nailed so many movies. When this most recent Spider-Man came out and they nailed that too, I'm like, I don't know if they're gonna end up. I mean, they've not that everything has been great, but they have been consistently excellent. And then to knock it out of the parks with so many movies in a row, I think it's going to continue. And same thing with the just quickly, Mike, the wrestling. You talking about your WWE finest made me go out and look for lots of finest wrestling cards on eBay. And that was before the craziness at WrestleMania that made me even more excited about WrestleMania. I haven't gotten any yet, but I'm going to. I don't own any cards right now, but there's no doubt I'm going to be getting some.
Well, if you need some, let me know because I have a lot. Right. But yeah, you bring up a good point. Like you said, you may have paid for the box that you got, but it's different than opening sports cards. Like you don't you're paying an amount, but you're going to get enjoyment out of that. Like you're not searching for that big hit. You're not saying, okay, well, I'm going to take a gamble on this. Now, the new WWE Prizm set is completely different. That doesn't fall into the category. That's more like, your modern football and basketball. Like you are, because of the price, chasing a hit. But like older stuff, I bought 91 classic WWF looking for Undertaker rookies. I bought the 94 Action Packed. Like regardless of what I get, enjoy it. And like the money, you're talking $200-$300 a box, but I'm happy when I'm at the end of the box consistently when I open that stuff. Where you're open new stuff and you get a bad box, it's like, ugh, so
leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah,
it does.
it's hard.
If you open up. Yeah. And to that point, I mean, I bought 1990 MU. I bought 2 boxes of it when it was starting to come down from its highest highs per box. I think at one point it cost like $3,000 for a box of those cards, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I got the first 2 boxes I bought for a little over $1,000. Not the cheapest, but still it was on the downturn. The last box I bought was about $600. They've ticked up a little bit. I think since the Spider-Man movie came out, they've kind of gone back up to that $1,000 box level. But that even being said, opening up that box, there's not that autograph you're looking for. There's not that RPA rookie patch auto or something like that. There are just cool looking cards, the holograms, which ironically aren't really worth as much because they don't come out as clean. But if you're trying to make money off of something like that, you have to send the cards out to be graded. And 10s in the 90 MU just hold such a premium right now. But for me, for my PC, I have them in a 3-ring binder, just like I did when I was 9-10 years old. I have them in a 3-ring binder, and just like EP said, I'll go through the binder and read the back of the cards. Some characters that haven't been in the MCU yet, which, by the way, they probably will be at some point. You read the back of the cards and see who their biggest villain is, and the did you know, and the different things like that. It's just a really, really cool thing that when you open up that box of cards, there's never going to be just disappointment. You're always going to be happy by the end of it, because you've got probably a full set, maybe even 2. You probably got 2 or 3 cool holograms, and you didn't miss out on that big hit, which made up the cost of what you paid.
Does anybody know if DC makes cards anymore? Do they have any DC, or who has the license? Or
I'm not sure.
I really don't think so. And that's another thing. And we've just put a rip that I did on the channel. We don't get as many views on the DC stuff as we do on the Marvel stuff, for sure. But DC, for the longest time in the 90s, they were tied with Marvel, and some thought, during the Death of Superman era, they could have exceeded Marvel. And you can still buy. I just got a box in yesterday. I got a box in for $35 from 1991 or something like that. Even the 1991 Marvel stuff is still up to like $400 for a box of cards. Wow. So, yeah, big difference.
Yeah. Do you obviously the Marvel market is because of the movies? You were talking about how they were closer back in the 90s, but that's when everything was driven by the actual comic books. And really, I honestly, I don't know how big or small the comic book market is, but I know, what's pushing the market for these cards are the movies. So do you think stuff like Peacemaker being so successful might give DC a little bit of a push in the right direction and get them back?
I think there are a lot of things right now working in their favor, where I think the Snyder cut of Justice League was better than the original. I think the James Gunn's Suicide Squad was amazing, and I think that they have a lot of things going for them that could potentially put them in the right direction. I've heard that I haven't seen the Batman yet, but I've heard it is fantastic.
It's very good.
So, I think they could be gaining some momentum. Let's just hope they don't have more stumbles along the way. And you would think, as popular as the MCU is, and as popular as Batman is as a character to a lot of people, that they should be able to build something to.
What's kind of ironic about that is, so their most popular characters are Batman and Superman, obviously, and Batman wasn't actually in the first 2 sets of their comic book cards, because his license was through Topps, because because of the movies. So the Batman '89 Michael Keaton movie, they made their own Batman cards. So DC Cosmic Cards from 1991, the first set, didn't have Batman, didn't have Robin, didn't have Penguin, Joker, none of them, because they were all tied to the movie rights, which really, really hurts the value of those cards, especially. But also, it really goes to show how disjointed, and it hasn't changed, how disjointed DC has always been. You have these Batman movies that have been phenomenal. Every iteration of the Batman movies, with the exception of the George Clooney, Val Kilmer debacle, but the first couple of Batman that Michael Keaton did, and then the Dark Knight trilogy, and then this new one, those have been the ones. And the TV show and the animated series, Batman was always the best. But DC has always been so disjointed, and they tried to push a universe onto us instead of taking the time that Marvel did. And I think that really helped out the Marvel collectibles. Is it started in 2008 with Iron Man and just kept building slowly. And then by the time it got to Infinity War and Endgame and things like that, all the collectibles, everything from Marvel started to pop.
So let's chase our white whale a little bit here. If you had unlimited funds, what is one non-sport card you would like to have in your collection that you don't have, Joe?
So for me, I think I generally think I have what I for the most part what I want. I do love some of those precious metal gems. I can't afford them though. Those are ridiculous. The
Yeah.
original series of the precious metal gems were awesome. There's a Spider-Man, there's a Venom that are just outlandishly expensive. More realistically though, I do have them, but I don't have them in my hand. I would like to get my Stanley PSA 10, my Black Panther PSA 10, some of these cards that I'd sent in, more so because they're the original ones I opened when the boom kind of hit, and I'd like to have them back. And it's beyond just a PSA lag thing. It's just I would like to see them because I think it would remind me to that time where I was ripping them and having just a great time getting back into the hobby. So, but in terms of just unlimited funds, things like that, some of those PMGs would be nice in the collection. There's a Doctor Strange one that's pretty cool too, and I'm a big mark for him.
Awesome. EP?
This was not on the list of things that you sent out. This is a trick question.
Yeah, a little bit.
I'm very excited to talk about it though. I think in the James Bond cards, this is not my number one, but in the James Bond cards, there is a Judi Dench auto that would be really good, but they are super expensive.
Yeah,
that would be a really cool one to get. I didn't pull that out. I got 3 boxes of that back in 2012, and I got there's like 3 autos per box, but Judi Dench was not one of them, and I didn't get any of the James Bond actors either. But I think my number one, and I don't even know if it exists, but there's probably one out there with Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, and Han Solo autos on like the same card. Like I'm sure there's one out there somewhere that is ridiculous in price, but we're talking about if we had unlimited funds, that would probably be the card. Like to get that would be pretty cool.
Nice. Myself, sticking with wrestling, actually something that would be obtainable, but let me grab it again. In this set, they have an actual autographed card of The Undertaker, and I would love to have that card. I probably could have bought that card for less than I paid for a box of Prizm. But they also have a Macho Man Randy Savage autograph too. So either one of those would be cool. But the Undertaker one, I just love the card, and I think having an autograph version of it would be so cool. So cool.
Well, what's kind of cool about that action pack is, can you imagine trying to autograph one of those cards with all
right?
PSA would not authenticate that for sure.
Yeah, that'd be rough.
Just one last point about, I think with the Picard series coming out, we haven't really talked about Star Trek because it's not as popular as Star Wars, obviously, but there's a lot of Picard Patrick Stewart autographs. I've been they're on the watch list, and it's one of those things where I could definitely afford, but I'm like, oh, maybe I could save a little money and wait for it. But that's probably on the list as well. And that's one of the reasons I kept coming to the shop, Mike, were Star Trek cards, because my first time there, you opened up a pack of Star Trek, was it Generations or something like that? It was one of the sets, and you pulled out a hologram like right in front of me.
I did, yeah.
11-year-old Joe Day was losing his mind. He's like, this guy those holograms are so tough to get. And Mike just opens up one pack and gets one. I still have it's not the same one, obviously, but I still have the William Shatner, the James Kirk hologram in my PC. So I am a big mark for the Star Trek cards too.
It's not part of this conversation specifically, but how about like when holograms first came out? Like, mind blowing, right? Like they're just awesome.
Oh yeah. And you look at holograms back then, like I wish we could get the camera could pick it up better, but the 3D holograms that Marvel came out with, and then DC tried to do something similar called the Sky Disc, where you kind of held it in the light, and it was a 360 degree. You could see Superman or Batman from the whole way around. Those would look awesome today if they came out in today's product. I like it's to realize that it's from 1994. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But holograms were just so, even like the football, remember the Pro Bowl holograms with the player's face kind of 3D in the one corner, and it was kind of like a shimmer effect. It was just such a cool idea when they first came out.
So let's talk a little bit about investing. What sets of non-sports do you think are worth investing in going forward? What has potential to break out, in the coming years?
I would say some of the early DC stuff, if they actually had Batman in them, because I think that's such a key. But for me, if you could pick up any of I did the rip, the DC Master Series. That is the first one that actually does have Batman in it, and it does have the Joker. And if you get a box that wasn't searched, you would actually get some very cool double-sided Spectre cards. And those cards have some characters who, if the DCU actually does pick up some steam, they have a Flash Reverse Flash, which is a really cool card. They have the Batman Joker. They already kind of ruined Doomsday, unfortunately, but they have a Superman Doomsday back-to-back card. So I think if I was going to get something cheap and see if it could maybe ascend, for me as a comic book card guy, that would probably be the box the set that I'd be looking for.
EP, are y'all about Pokemon?
I was going to say Pokemon just because that's the one card product that it seems to not really lose its value, especially like on the box level. Again, Charizard is not going to get into legal trouble, and Pikachu is not going to, tear his ACL. So they won't. But I feel like that's probably the best investment. But for me, like I don't really think of it all the time as investment. And I think if you just want to kind of get to dip your toe into this, and if you want to kind of get into it, there are other products that you might want to look into. And like Allen and Ginter in baseball, if you're a baseball fan, just pick up a box, and there's a chance you could get like an autograph of like a heavyweight championship boxer that or a supermodel that might be worth $1,000. And so it's maybe not the best investment. It's more of a set building product, but there's chances for good stuff, and there's a lot of good variety in there. Also this week, I think it was this week, Goodwin Champions released from Upper Deck, and is a product that has a lot of different things, including like unlicensed baseball and football type players, but it has all sorts of stuff. And I think there's a lot of really interesting products out there with the potential for really good, really fun, like autographs and stuff like that. But as far as investing, the Marvel stuff and Pokemon stuff and the wrestling stuff are probably really good investments that could elevate.
Just the one thing I want to add, if you want a fun rip and you really want Marvel cards, I think the Series 4 is after the Series 1 is probably my second favorite set. It's my favorite set after the Series 1. Because those cards, the first 2/3 or 3/4 of the set are, if you collect, so cards 1 through 9, and then cards 10 through 18, and so on, make a one page, it almost looks like a comic book action sequence where those 9 cards build a scene. And just doing that, and I think I did a rip, and we'll put it on the channel, at some point. I think something like that, it's got some value. You can still, if you want to build two, or rip a box and build 2 sets, keep one and sell one, you can probably do okay. But beyond that, just the fun of seeing the center card of Magneto surrounded by 8 X-Men is really, really cool. Yeah. And that's something that you can pick up fairly cheap. I mean, obviously nothing's cheap nowadays, but you can pick it up much cheaper than you can the Series 1.
Do you have a ballpark on price for that?
I want to say under $200, and you can buy complete sets. If you're just looking for base sets, you can buy them for $60-$70 on eBay. So it's something that I know you and I would want to buy a box of, because the three of us, we like to rip more than we would just like to buy something. But there are opportunities to find that for $200 or less.
Okay, before I get to mine, I just want to go back to the Pokemon EP. Like, it's crazy to me. You remember the shop back in the late 90s, all the kids that came in buying Pokemon cards. I had people buying packs of Pokemon cards and knocking on my door at like 9 o'clock at night to resell them to me to have at the store. And that was a craze like nothing I've ever experienced. And like, to think that now, like 20 plus years later, it's still there and it's still popular, like, amazing to me. That's like, I don't think you can go wrong with anything Pokemon, because it's already lasted this long. I can't see it ever going away.
And those kids that knocked on your door are now adults who have money.
Yeah.
And that's, I think a lot of this is drawn by that. I mean, you can't deny the fact that if I was 10 years old and had the income I have now somehow, I would be
Exactly.
gone nuts in the card shop, So I think those kids that were 10 then are 40 now, and they actually have jobs and they can go out and buy some of this stuff on eBay or at a local card shop.
Yeah, I've talked up eBay a couple times here, and like back when you were selling those cards, like I had zero interest. I almost despised them because they were taking up so much of everybody's time in the card hobby. But now, like, I'm a big fan of dragons and dogs, and I wouldn't mind having like a collection of like the dragon Pokemon and the dog Pokemon, like just the wolves, whatever they're called. But yeah, I mean, just like, and I have a number of unopened boxes just because that I realize that they are good investments to have and hold and see if they go up in value.
Just to answer your question, EP, from before, you can buy an or best offer 1993 Skybox Marvel Universe Series 4. You can get it for $100 with $20 for $21.20 for shipping, very specific. But so I'd say you could probably go in for a $90 offer and probably get it. And there you go. It's a fun rip for around $100, $120.
I'm going to check that out. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, my investment product, kind of, I don't know if I'm cheating here or what, but I think the Topps Chrome WWE stuff from 2014 and 2015. Now, that stuff has already jumped in value quite a bit, but like with Prizm coming out, it like is kind of getting lost in the shuffle. Like the wrestling card market was heating up before Prizm came out. So the refractors and the gold refractors out of 50 out of that early Chrome stuff was really doing well. But I think with Fanatics taking the license back in a couple of years, unless they would happen to buy Panini and put out Prizm, like Topps Chrome is going to be the go-to for that product again. And, even though that has appreciated quite a bit, I think it has a lot of room to grow in coming years.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think it was, we reference card Twitter quite a bit, but I think people have noticed that you can still buy Topps Finest from this past year on the shelves. It's retail, and I think that's I believe such a nicer looking product than Prizm is, and I think that's kind of, people are forgetting about it, and I think that might be a mistake. I mean, Prizm is hot right now, and obviously for the next couple of years that Prizm is making WWE cards, I think it's going to be hot, but at a certain point, Topps is going to be back in the lead on that. And you've got to think that some of the older stuff should gain value.
Yeah. Like if a one of the Ultimate Warrior and Bret Hart, I think there were sales of $15,000 for the one-of-ones of those two out of Prizm. Yet the Roman Reigns Super Fractor one-of-one was a 10,000 out of 2015 or whatever the product was. Like that blows my mind. Like, which card, if you were going to buy a card to increase in value, which one are you buying? You're going to buy the Roman Reigns, right? Like, I mean, no disrespect to Bret Hart or the Ultimate Warrior, but they're just not as collectible as Roman Reigns. But because of the set they're in, like, I can't imagine what price the Roman Reigns one-of-one is going to go for. Like, that's got to be at least 30,000 if the Ultimate Warrior is 15. So like 3x over, like, there's only one of each of them. Like I think the Super Fractor was a PSA 10, so that was already graded, already came back gem. So
those type of cards get scratched so easily that that Warrior one-of-one could get scratched on the way to PSA if that's the case. I do want to say, and I'm not 100% sure with the WWE stuff, but, and this isn't really specific to non-sports, but shill bidding has to be taking place with some of this stuff.
Oh yeah.
Especially the new Prizm stuff coming out. I know Marvel there's been issues with show building with that. This is a non-sports podcast, and how we're not talking about the V friends and how great they are is beyond me. But a lot of show bidding, with that kind of stuff. So you say it's 15 grand. I wonder if that 15 grand got paid. I'm curious on how much show bidding and on payments are going to end up happening, especially with the retail stuff coming out. I think it came out today, right? So I don't know. That's going to be interesting to see if that $15,000 price tag is actually what it is.
Yeah. I know some of them have been confirmed sales, but there have been others already that people have backed out of. I know a guy got the John Cena Color Rush, and he was the first Color Rush out there. He put it on eBay, started at 99 cents. I want to say it went for close to 15K, and he just posted that he got a message from the buyer that, oh, another one sold for 4,000 less, so I can't do this. It's like, like I feel for the, like, what a gut punch, but
right.
You have to wonder how much that's happening, and wonder why people do it. People don't want to discuss the fact that there are people that could benefit by pumping up these early sales of stuff. But I mean, there are, whether or not it's being done on purpose, I don't know. I can't say for sure, but there are people that could benefit from it if there are eBay sales showing, these high prices that people didn't really pay.
And I think V Friends was the biggest one. I mean, you look
at
stuff going for
right?
10, 20,000 that now is a few $100. It's just it's really mind blowing, because again, I thought the product was stupid anyway. It's an actual card of an NFT whatever,
something like that. I don't even know.
But there are influencers in the business who will do very well if Gary V stuff does very well. So I don't think the rest of the non-sports cards is as flagrant as that shilling was, but there is definitely a lot of shilling going on, and that could be a whole other video about eBay. But there is a lot of shilling going on in the non-sports landscape.
Definitely,
I think there is a lot of shilling going on, but I think some of these sales, at least for the WWE, are probably legit.
Some are.
Yeah, you look at the F1 racing cards that came out, like Topps Chrome. I think it was like last year was the first ever for these cards, and they actually, their boxes of them are ridiculous. The price on them is just astronomical to try to get a box. And something like the best racers, those cards prices are through the roof as well. And kind of WWE, even though like a lot of people forget about those sets that you were talking about, Mike, from 2014, 2015, and they're just looking at now, and like the first Prizm set, because it's the first Prizm, everybody thinks that they're the greatest thing. And I agree that I think that'll probably drive up prices of some of that older stuff once people realize that it's out there.
Yeah, and like there's honestly been a big kind of almost a war going on card Twitter between like the new wrestling collectors and the old wrestling collectors, and like, kind of picking an either or thing. But I know that everybody who's buying the Prizm isn't a wrestling fan. There are people that are jumping in, trying to make money off of it, but some people will become new collectors of that, and they will go back. If you're going to look at a Hulk Hogan card from 2022, you're going to go back and look at a Hulk Hogan card from 2015 or from 1990 or from 1983. That's how it works. That's how new collectors start off, whatever gets your foot in the door. And not everybody's going to go back, but there will be people that go back. So like, even though the Prizm thing is kind of overwhelming, I think it will really lift all of the wrestling card market.
I think the thing that will hurt a little bit is the base cards going for what wasn't like some of the base cards were going for like $100, things like that
to start.
And I think people don't realize that. I think old wrestling collectors / new to Panini collectors are going to be floored when they realize how much of especially the base stuff gets released in retail. Target already released some hanger packs, I believe. And there's going to be a lot of base cards in there and a lot of different color in there and things like that. I think the folks that are used to opening up one, base set or a box or whatever, and you got, one Hogan, one Andre, they're going to realize that there's a lot more of those base cards available nowadays, and it's going to drive the prices pretty hard down.
Oh yeah, it already has.
Yeah.
I mean, you're having that convergence of the ultra modern sport card market with the wrestling card market, and I mean, you have to educate yourself a little bit about what you're doing, because like I'm into sports cards, so I know that I'm not going to pay $100 for a base card just because it came out. Like, they're going to go down, but a lot of people don't know that, and people took advantage of that from the start. But I don't know what you can do. As a buyer, you have to kind of know and understand what you're buying into before you do it.
Yeah. And a lot of the stuff that is coming out, it reminds me of someone we play fantasy football with. They always like the young player, the new player. I think that's why some of the stuff with the wrestling, some of the older stuff is taking a back seat, because everyone likes the new thing. Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow rookie cards were the hot thing. And then, now we have this next class of quarterbacks. Now, they didn't perform well, but Mac Jones, I bet you his RPAs could compete with Burrow and Herbert. I think the same thing's going on with wrestling or with Marvel or whatever you collect. I mean, the new thing always seems like the cool thing. So if you're not cognizant of some of the games that these companies play with the stuff they're releasing, you could really get stuck with a $100 base card, which you could get for $5 a week from now.
Yeah, and a lot of people have compared like the WWE Prizm release to the 1990 Marvel set when that got hot, like a little over a year ago, with the PSA graded cards and everything. So like, there are lessons to be learned, but whether people are going to learn them or not, I don't know. So.
And you made the point in one of your videos before, Mike, and we should plug that one, where you had the set from, was it the 60s? The Marvel set from the 60s. A lot of people assume that 90 MU was the first ever, there it is. Was the first ever Marvel set to come out, and it wasn't, but that's the thing that certain collectors remember. So that's in their mind, it was the first set to come out. I think some people will feel that way about, this WWE Prizm or some of the newer stuff. They're like, oh, this is my first set. This is the one I'm going to deem the most important. And I can understand how older wrestling fans and older collectors, a couple of which we kind of make fun of on text messages, I can understand how they could get a little annoyed by that.
Yeah. Okay, well, we had a good chat today, and keep on loving our non-sport cards. People want to make fun of us or not.
That's right.
All right, take care, boys.
Yep.
See ya
later.